It's really a combination of forecast and plan. It's going to be read by other people. And in fact, yes ma'am.
So I might actually pass this class?
Huh?
I might actually pass?
Are you what to pass?
No, so like, I might actually pass.
Yeah, you may. You want to.
It's a possibility.
That's what
If you work, if you want to pass, you
Chow Chow, my dog, my dad's got to high school.
hang in there.
That's what he living like an hour now.
The people that don't pass are the ones that don't do the work.
How's Hannah doing?
Or do what they think is work and it's just turning in a bunch of mini-tab hogwash. All right, let's talk about the class project. How long is it? What should be in it? What should it address? It should address your hypothesis statement and the objective, and that is to develop a company's plan and forecasting plan, and go through the assignments that you've already done. Okay? They become parts of the project. We'll talk about that in just a second. Who gets to read this? You guys know we're AACSB accredited, right?
Yes.
This is one of the requirements for their accreditation. And I have to keep these reports. I have them all the way back to 2012 for every class that's been taught here. I have 309. So your report will last a long time. It'll be reviewed by other members of the faculty, and they'll determine whether or not you are writing of the caliber that's required for business. So you have to get by me with a good grade first. And I've been trying to tell you guys, don't change tense, don't speak like you possess the data, don't use my, try to expunge the report of I's, take those I's out, make it active voice. And you're writing to a company's strategic planning vice president. That's me in this case. I used to be one of those. Showing the company's strategic plan revenue and forecast and a strategic plan. And this is the time to demonstrate you're capable of successful, important assignment. There are no examples given. You know what happened when I first started teaching this back in 2008? People asked me for examples, and you know what I got back? Got the examples back. You won't have that in business. Somebody asks you to write a plan for them, you won't have a template to use. You do it yourself. Structure it the way you want it, organize it the way you want it, lead and guide the reader through the plan the way you want it, through the forecasting plan. Remember that mini-tab results are not the objective. Page after page of plots or tables and all this other stuff with no verbiage between them, nothing to explain them. You should say why you're showing something and what it indicates, okay? There's two things relative to every plot, every table, every statistic. So mini-tab is only there to support your work. It's like an Excel spreadsheet, support maybe some observation relative to data. Mini-tab is just there to support what you're saying. And what you're saying is important, it's critical. What I grade, organization. Do I have to flip back and forth in the report to read it? You don't want to create a flipping document. That is one that refers to something in the appendix. It continually refers to stuff in the appendix when it should be in the body of the report if you've got that much reference to it.
Is this on Doctor?
Huh?
Is this on Doctor?
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's not, I'll put it on there. I think it's on there. I'm pretty sure. I'll check it for grammar and spelling. Oh, avoid data tables in the body of the paper. You know what happens when executives see data tables? They're reading along and then all of a sudden you see this row after row of data. It kind of puts them to sleep. It's like putting a chicken's beak on a line, you know? They kind of go go to sleep. Don't have misspelled words. Don't have misspelled words. You never heard of that
Do
before?
they really go to
You
sleep?
haven't raised chickens, huh?
They really do it.
Don't have any misspelled words or grammatical errors. Because what happens when you have misspelled words and grammatical errors, guess what the reader's starting to look for?
Layers.
More errors.
I have a question.
Yes.
If our data tables aren't supposed to be in the body of the paper, are you supposed to just have an appendix? But I thought you said you don't want to flip.
That's exactly the case.
Wait, but I
Put them in the
thought-
appendix.
But I-
tables of graphs.
But I
Graphs
thought-
and data tables.
Sorry, but I thought you just said you don't want us to be flipping back and forth.
Exactly. Are there some statistics in that table they should look for? Like if you have LBQ values,
Okay,
don't show the whole LBQ table.
okay.
Show the 12th and 24th lag
Okay,
LBQ
then-
values, and then you can put the table in the back.
Appendix, but just no.
Yeah. Yeah, just cut to the chase.
Quit looking up that picture.
Make the report. I tell you, if you turn in a project that's more than 20 pages,
On the line, they're
executives are probably not going to read it. Got that? Now you can have 20 pages of charts and plots and explanation and all this other business. But for the data, put it in the back of the report in an appendix. That's not counted in the 20 pages. So, any variables that you used as X variables, you need to put the source for them. I'll take responsibility for the source for the company revenue, because you can assume I gave that to you, okay? Since you're working for the planning department. But for each of the X variables, you need to have the variable data in the appendix along with the source of it. The source of most of those macro variables is what? It's in the heading. FRED2, it's got a link, so you can easily footnote the data table with that source. Grammar and spelling, I told you to take it off the table. Because it's just a diversion. Means that what it does is starts discounting your paper very quickly. Presentation of forecast variables using regression, using the ARIMA method. I focused a little bit on the ARIMA method, but I'll using all methods. Presentation of company revenue, use of terminology. Do not show any failed models, only show best models. Don't set up a straw man and say, yeah, I tried this and it didn't work, and then I tried this and it didn't work, and tried this. Write it like you're making it look simple and easy. Okay? Don't show any indication that it was a struggle for you. Even though you struggled with me through this class, make the report look like what you've done is pretty easily done. Okay? So make it look easy. Talk like it is straightforward and easily done. Do not list sections. Don't use possessive terminology. Don't never use in any business report the terms attempt or try. Those are terrible words to expose in a business report. If you're attempting something, go do it someplace else. Okay? You're going to accomplish it. Either you do it or you don't. One or the other. Got it? Do not list sections from the textbook as internet or internet as filler. I can detect that 500 miles away. I want everything in your own words. You don't need filler. In fact, the shorter the report, the better. I'll count off for any plots or tables without narration. Why are you showing it? What it indicates. Consider that what the executive reader needs to know and provide it. Don't provide anything else. Don't provide any explanation of the company, any history of the company. It's a waste of time. Executives see that as padding. Okay? Don't talk about the products. You can talk about it if there's a program that needs to be put in place as a correction for maybe the direction of revenue is going in. But do not talk about products and services that the company has, produces or the target markets that it's got. So you don't need any flowery wrapper for this. It's very straightforward. It's business. Cut to the chase. Here's a forecast. This is how I derived it. This is a forecast. This is the plan. And these are the programs. I'll count out for any tables without a narration. Plots or tables. Consider what the executive agrees to know. Do not provide a tutorial to executives. Now, this is a fine line you have to walk because you take your typical master's degree level executive. I was a PhD level, so I had a little bit of advantage. Master's degree level executives, some of them get offended by tutorials. I calculated the F value because you went back to the F definition. You don't need to, okay? Assume that they've got kind of a master's knowledge, at least your level of knowledge, most of the variables or statistics, okay? So it's not a learning exercise from the standpoint of statistics, but it's a learning exercise for them from the standpoint of what you did, how you got to where you are in terms of the forecast, and what the plan looks like, okay? So does everybody understand what needs to happen? So it doesn't necessarily have to be really long, but if it's concise and to the point, follows a logical flow, progression, goes from purpose to hypothesis, or purpose, methodology, hypothesis. You guys have written those pieces anyway, right? You wrote a methodology paper. That goes in there. You can put a little purpose statement above it and keep going with the next assignment. So you should be able to use your assignments if you just put them one after the other. Executive summary. Have you guys written executive summaries before?
Yes.
It's a spoiler. Okay? You just cut to the chase and tell them what you've discovered about the forecast. Does it look good for the company? Look bad for the company? Okay? What's causing it? Short description of the methods and the results they're interested in. And what this is, I don't know whether you're familiar with the way executives work. When you fly into a meeting to discuss this with the other executives, you might have read this report a week ago. So all you want to do is remind them what's in it and what the result was, the bottom line. Okay? Does it look good for net income for the company? Does it look good for the stock price? Does the forecast revenue look like it's increasing or decreasing over the plan period? So executive summaries are spoilers. I know you hate to write something like that, but that's exactly the case. It should be no more than 2 paragraphs, short paragraphs. Okay? Don't go into a great deal of discussion about the methodology or any statistical analysis. Save that for the body of the paper. Just talk about the results in the exec summary. I've got an introduction. You change the title of that the way you want to. It could be hypothesis or methodology. Variables and their characteristics, you can substitute the variable analysis that you've done along with the forecast for each of those variables to that. So what I'm saying is this report should be just kind of a compendium of what you've done. Here are the models and forecasts right here for each of the variables. I've got ARIMA models, but it should be all the models. That's assignment 3, isn't it? It goes here. Company multiple regression forecast, you can talk about that. That's the company model that we're going to talk about again today. In the conclusion section, your comments on the business, the implication of the forecast and plan, and let me see, and the data appendix. So generally speaking, this was, I need to change this to make sure I got it geared for you. take out that ARIMA focus, that was for summer school, pardon me for that. And I want you to write a good conclusion section. In that conclusion section, you should put in a description of the general fixes that you see the company might take going forward. It's really challenging your business skills, okay? You got this company performing this way, what do you think it ought to change? Should it try to explore new markets? Should it try to reduce some costs? Should it try to introduce new products? Do they have a history of introducing new products? If they do, they're probably pretty good at it, but it's also indicative of relatively high R&D expense in most cases. You know, those new products paying off. All right, so everybody understands what needs to happen. I would say a report of about 20 pages written with the, or less, written with the tables and, not tables, but the plots and statistics shown in it. And when you're discussing the regression models, show the regression equation. Not the equation, but the regression coefficients and the t-values. You talk about those points of focus you had for regression. That's one of the assignments you guys had anyway. So you're going to get some comments back from this next submission that you're going to turn into me relative to the final model and plan. So let's look at a regression opportunity. I've got American Airlines revenue, household net worth, and money velocity. If I ran a simple regression model on them, it would look like this. Hopefully I've got the Durbin-Watson statistic. The analysis of variance shows the F statistic is relatively high. R-square adjusted is not too bad for two variables, two macro variables. The t-values are significant, aren't they? There's a negative relationship between money velocity. The higher the money velocity, the less the revenue for American Airlines. The greater the household net worth, the more the revenue for American Airlines, which makes sense. All right, and a Durbin-Watson statistic indicates what? Oh, we didn't go back to the VIFs. The VIF factors are below 5, so the signs are consistent with correlations and the VIF factors are low, so we don't have a problem with multicollinearity. It's a killer for regression models. And if the government does something to increase household net worth, what could they do you think, to increase household net worth?
Raise minimum wages.
Huh? Cut taxes, right? Don't you think?
Yep.
Put more money in the household's pockets would help. Could increase the return on investments, and or give a tax break on investments as well. That's another way of doing it. It only affects a certain sector of the consumer marketplace, but that sector of the consumer marketplace might be the ones that are flying anyway for American Airlines. So you know what the macroeconomic conditions might be relative to changing this company's revenue behavior. So we've got these linking it to the economy. Money velocity's been falling. What does that mean? The number of times the money supply changes hands. You know why it's been falling, you guys?
Because of cards.
Huh?
Is it more people use their cards or like their phone to pay?
Well, actually, it's still part of the money velocity.
Oh, okay.
What happens is that there's more money available. It makes the velocity fall. So the Federal Reserve System's been buying securities from banks, pumping money into the economy right and left. You guys are aware of that, right? Yeah, you know that stuff that caused a big recession? And you remember TARP? But the things that caused a big recession are something called, what is it? Collateralized debt obligations. You guys remember those?
I remember hearing about
Those are bundled mortgages. And they went, the value of those things went through the floorboard, so the banks that were holding those securities found that they were worthless, and therefore they were losing money. So what did the Federal Reserve System do? It buys those collateralized debt obligations from banks. And what do they exchange those worthless, relatively worthless collateralized debt obligations for money? Okay, so money's being pumped in.
So basically, they took their debts away.
Huh?
They took some of their debts away from like
Yes.
for exchange.
What's happened is they passed the problem on to us. It hasn't gone away. It's being monetized. That's what it's called. And eventually it's going to catch up with us. In terms of if the inflationary worm ever turns, it's going to turn quickly. But that's what's happening relative to the money velocity. It's the number of times the money that changes hands in the public. It's due to the fact that the velocity has decreased or has decreased because of the increase in money stock. All right. So we've got a decent regression model, but look at this, the Durbin-Watson statistic. Does that stink or what? Let's look at the animal we're dealing with. It's always a good thing to show what we've got here. American Airlines revenue. Let's look at that. Just put a time scale on that baby. Calendar, not day, but month or quarter and year. In the first quarter, it starts at first quarter of 1990, so I put 1 here for first quarter and the year 1990, so the day begins. And it gives me a nice little plot of American Airline revenue by the day, with the date references. Okay. We see it's a nice climb, and then there are some decreases that occurred. Q4 of 97 and Q4 of 98. Fourth quarter, that seems like it's kind of weird because usually you'd see increased revenue during those quarters because of people traveling. Then we have 2002, there's a recession that occurred here. You guys remember the 2000 recession? No, you don't. Yeah, I remember it because I work in tech. It was a tech recession, tech-driven recession. Our stock prices went through the floorboards. So you had probably a little bit less travel during this tech recession. That could cause that. American Airlines, I know I travel less. Then it increased again. Then there's another drop. What is this? That's the big recession, the big one, right? But American Airlines didn't react any worse to that than it did to the tech-driven recession. Why is that? They were flying a lot of business customers, clients around during the tech recession. And a lot of the tech people quit traveling. Here we have just across the board reduction in travel. And we go along and we have some sort of big upswing here. What do you think could have caused this?
Started buying people out.
Merger.
Yes.
Merger caused this. What company did they merge with back in Q4 of 2013?
I think it's called, I forgot what it's called. It's like American something.
Let me see. After we find that, let's go to Google Chrome.
Probably seen that bullshit.
Come on, Chrome.
You have to take that last one, press it, and you get credit for it. Yeah, fair enough, too.
associated with too many A's in it than an AA merger. Anyway, you can look it up.
US Airways.
US Airways. There it is. So you got a US Airways merger that occurred and it kicked up the revenue. That's really tough to find, isn't it? All right. So here we are. That deserves a dummy variable, don't you think? Don't you think this would?
So I have a question.
Go ahead.
Whenever we're forecasting, is this where we start at?
When looking at the company's revenue?
I don't know. I guess I didn't ask a question right. Is this where we start at when we're forecasting? Like,
Well, you start by looking at the company, but then you put together a hypothesis statement. Remember?
I mean, like as far as just unique type stuff.
Oh, you mean the regression forecast?
Is this where we start at the time series plot?
Yeah, yeah.
Very-
You start with the two variables that you've got, two X variables. Run the model.
Where's the model though?
It's right
This,
here.
Right?
Right here. I'll show it to you. Just run it again. Stat, regression, fit regression model. See that?
Yes.
And what we're gonna do is put the American, or the company's revenue here, and the two variables that I've got here. And naturally, I had forecasts for those two variables, don't I? Got those from assignment 3. And you just run make sure that you have the Durbin-Watson's statistic checked. When you run it, let me go back. Make sure you go to results and check that last box. See the Durbin-Watson box? Make sure that's checked. Okay, because you're going to use that to kind of guide you relative to what you need to do. So, you all right? You know where we are?
Sure.
So we've got the F statistic is nice and high. The likelihood of that F statistic being 0 is 0. We have the adjusted R squared being relatively high, 80%. We're explaining 80% of the variation with those economic variables. The t-values are significant, right? One's positive, one's negative, but they're still significant. The Viv factors are low, and we know that the money velocity had a negative correlation, therefore it's consistent. And don't worry about the regression equation because that's going to change as we add new variables. But as it stands right now, there's thousands, 100, 10, 20, what is it, 74 bucks that they get for every household net worth $1,000 or $1 million increase. Yes, sir.
What do you want the Durbin-Watson statistic to be? I forgot.
Where do you want it to be?
Yeah, what do you want that number to be?
I thought you never asked that question. How many variables do we have?
Right now, 2.
We got 2. So you look across the top here, and K is equal to 2. See that?
Yeah.
Take the lower limit relative to K is equal to 2, so you're going to shift over to this column, or this column. See the lower limit? K2 DL. See that?
Yeah.
So now I need to know how many observations I've got. I've got over 100 observations, so I just slide down. In this case, I slide down to 163. You see that?
Okay.
That's a number that I have to be above to prevent having something called positive serial correlation. Positive serial correlation means that there's too much information being left in the residuals, and that information is caused by business cycles. That's what positive serial correlation results in. Just think of it as a wave. So you want to be higher than that number. And where are we sitting in our model? .3751. That's much, much less than 1.6. What was it, 62 or whatever? Isn't it? Isn't it? So that means we've got too much serial correlation. What does this mean to you? If I went ahead with this model, I wouldn't have 95% confidence in it. So does that mean that those
So can that happen? Because you like all your other numbers look good though. Before
Yeah.
we even looked at that,
yeah,
so that can happen to us.
it can happen to you. The Durbin Watson statistic makes these numbers are correct in terms of the coefficient values for these
Yeah.
variables.
But it's
But
just
the Durbin Watson statistic, even though you've got confidence here in the T, the Durbin Watson statistic removes your confidence, and you fall out of favor, right?
there's
So you can't be
What-
95% confident. in the
what
model.
PowerPoint is that on? The table?
The table is 77 in this package. It's probably around that. It's in your book too, if you get a textbook.
Okay, it's in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get to up here, get to here.
All right. We're going to come back to the table in just a minute. So this, try to introduce some saving grace. Does this data have seasonality?
Yes.
Huh?
What'd you say?
Does this data have seasonality?
Yes.
For these data? They do. Let's see if they do. Stat. What do we do to check it? Somebody tell me. Autocorrelation function. Would that work? I'm answering this stuff myself. You guys ought to be answering this junk. Look, if I connect the third observation or third lag period of the ACF table with the fifth lag period, doesn't it rear its little ugly little head up above the average? Doesn't that mean seasonality? Did everybody see that?
Say it one more time.
We've got seasonality in the data because we ran the autocorrelation function.
Because the fourth one's above the line.
Yeah, it's sticking its head up. If you took an average of these two numbers in the table, this would be above the average. So we got seasonality in the data.
Can you?
Okay, what do you want me to do? Do it again?
Yes.
Yes.
Another guy knows what he wants.
You just
Are
talk
we
so
turning on
fast.
predictables where you can guess what we're gonna ask you?
Yeah, right.
Right here, bro.
That's part of the job.
Oh, good.
So we go to time series, autocorrelations, AA revenue, test it.
Oh, those
See, it kind of sticks its head up. You can see it rises a little bit, can't you? I'm going to try to put this bullet in here so it captures it. Okay, you see it sticking its little head up? So that means it's above the average, because if it were on the average line, it means it's simply trend, right? But it's not trend, it's got more information than just simple trend. That information is caused by seasonality. I know this is a terrible time to try to teach this stuff.
Oh, is this?
Is it getting through to you? Okay. All right. What can I do about seasonality? We talked about this last time.
So it has season.
What can I do about seasonality? Somebody tell me.
Decomposition.
Huh? Couldn't I put quarterly stuff in? Quarterly dummies?
Yeah, that's what we did.
Okay. I'm going to show you a shortcut.
Oh, you did run the.
go to stat regression. No, not stat regression. Stat time series. Now watch me. I'm going to go to decomposition. You remember that method, forecast method? It's pretty cool because it breaks the data down into component parts. And what component part are we interested in?
Seasonality.
The seasonal component part. Beautiful.
Good job, Kevin.
So we'll put the AA revenue in it, and the seasonal length is what, 4? Right? Quarterly data. And watch this. We're going to store something called the seasonals. You see the seasonals? You guys see that? Check that box. That's the only thing I want from this dude. Say
Not the
okay.
adjusted data.
Okay, you guys following? And I'm going to just nuke this. And you can tell it's seasonal by looking at seasonal adjusted versus non.
If they're both the same, that means they have seasonality, right?
Yeah, you don't have it. But here are the seasonal indices. You see them? 9602. Let me see if I can change that. Editor. Shoot. I forgot how to do it now. Need some options. Tools, that's where we need to go. Tools, options. Dialog box with a session
Oh my
window.
gosh, I hate myself. You see, you know, for the program that gives you more credit, like undergraduate course for your master's degree. So like, it's a fast track program, so you graduate faster. And I love them because I'm coming here.
Yeah, it's data font. Just raise that up to 14. Okay.
Wow.
You see the seasonal numbers repeat, don't they? 96250 is repeated down here after 4 observations. Repeated again after 4 observations. 96002 is repeated after 4 observations. So it's just a repeating series of the same numbers. And can we forecast these? Yes, we can, can't we?
Can.
All we have to do is just make sure we repeat the numbers that it's got. So what I've got here is a variable. This is another variable we're going to use in our bag of tricks to improve the regression. So I'm going to copy it and move it over to the variables. Control X. I'm going to just stick it right here. Control V. Okay?
Where'd you put it?
I just put it as a variable, one of the variables. Now I need to come up with a season's forecast. Okay? So let's go down to the bottom, since this is a repeating data series. Let's see if we can get the thing repeated for a couple of years. It stops at 9, and this year should stop at 12:17. Mine stops at 9:17. I don't quite go quite as far as you guys go. But now I need to count back 8 periods from this. So the next one should start at 12.
So count back 8.
And I'm going to count this. The next one is a 12, right? Since I started at 9. See, this is 9. Next one should be the 12/31/2017. I'm going to
So
copy
ours
this.
would be 9.
Huh?
So ours would be 9.
Yeah. It's 9:30. Next one should be 12/31, right? 17. So I copied the 12/31, and it should have enough values for a forecast. Control V. There it is. So you just want to copy the entire year. Did you guys see how to do that?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
The seasonal data ends at the ninth period, right?
Why'd you do 8?
No, not the ninth period, but third quarter. So I need to start the forecast of the fourth quarter. So I simply go up and copy from the fourth quarter on and paste it in. See that? So I pasted 2 years worth of forecast starting at the fourth quarter of 2017. You're going to start at the first quarter of 2018 in your data. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Okay?
Should have said that first.
Let's see what happens when we run the regression now. Now that's not a categorical, is it? Because it can take on any numerical value and percentage decimal place. So it's a continuous predictor. So we move seasonality from out of the categorical predictors where we had three quarters. Now we're going to move it into
I'm not sure I understand.
seasonal data or the continuous predictors. Okay, you got that?
So seasonal data and the continuous.
Yeah, seasonal data now becomes a predictor, and it's continuous because the seasonal data has numerical values other than ones and zeros. It's not categorical. Okay? So it treats it as a continuous predictor. And let's see what happens to the regression now. F statistic went down. R square went up just slightly. It was 80, wasn't it? 80 and change. The seasonal index is good, isn't it? Don't you think? It's significant. It's not, the VIP factors didn't rise above that. And the Durbin-Watson statistics really stinks. It's gone down, hasn't it? It didn't help it. So what this did, I don't know whether you're familiar with Durbin-Watson statistics, but you have positive and negative serial correlation. If we took away the negative serial correlation, you'd have more positive serial correlation. Makes sense, doesn't it? That's what happened here. We explained the negative serial correlation, took it out with the seasonal index. What happened though, it drove us into seeing more cycle in the residuals. So how in the world can we address that? Let's go back to the time series plot. We've got 2 data values here that reach rock bottom. There's 3 of them in that. That's Q4 96, Q4 97, Q4 98. Let's see if we can model those. What do you think caused that? Competition. Let's just say that. Starts at Q4 96, isn't it? 97 and 98. Let's put those Q4s in. 96, 1, 97 is another, and 98 is wherever that is right here. It raises up. And there's zero fill between them. There's zero fill after them. Huh. You do have to move the cursor. Get all the way to the end of the data series. Come on. Take the zeros all the way to the end of the data series. Come on. Sound like I'm talking to my wife, don't I? I'm just kidding.
That's not it.
No.
That's not it.
Don't you dare tell her I said that. She would skin me alive.
I'll call her up.
Yeah, do that.
First I'm gonna call Dr. Myers and then his wife.
All right.
That's the plan.
Let's look at competition now. Let's add that variable. Time series, stat, regression, fit regression model. And we're going to put the responses, American Airlines revenue, and money velocity and seasonality. And we're going to put the competition as a dummy variable because of zeros and ones, isn't it? See what happens. Didn't run the model. Let's try it again. Competition, seasonality, we got them in the right spot, it's categorical. Competition's not holding, look at that. 0.0 low F value, but it does not hold, period. The T value is too small, so we can't use it. Let's try another one. I'm gonna try one more. Let's try this merger. And we're gonna say it starts right here at Q1 2014, and then it goes to the end of the data series. I'm gonna use the same data series, Q1 2014. Go find that right here. Start putting in some ones and take those all the way down to the end of the data series. Come on. My mouse skills are horrible, aren't they? It's not dragging on me. I'll just put some more in.
Yeah, she
I
canceled
didn't
class.
need that one. Didn't need that one.
My favorite class.
That's clear as hell. All right, let's see if that's stuck. Stat, regression. Fit regression model. American Airlines. And we call that merger, didn't we? Dummy variable. This is what we get. Merger stuck, didn't it? See it's significant? See it's above 1.960. Seasonality stuck. Household net worth didn't, but money velocity got knocked out. So the merger is explaining a lot of what money velocity was explaining. Which one would you suggest using? Durbin-Watson statistic 7.2. And it was, we didn't have it, it was about 2.2. So we've improved the Durbin-Watson statistic, okay? Don't you think we have? So I'm going to take out, I'm compelled to take out, I cannot have a model with an insignificant variable in it. So I'm going to take out money velocity and leave the merger in. Because the result is a better Durbin-Watson statistic than I had. I mean, I'm explaining more of the cycle variation at 7.2 and 95% R square adjusted. It's a better model than if I that money belongs to the end. Yes, sir.
But can we do that for ours, or do you want two variables?
Oh, yeah. You can.
Can we do that?
I'll give you permission if you have a good, but you've got to prove to me
You have one good variable.
that one good variable gives you better results. Okay? Write it up. Tell me that one variable improved the Durbin-Watson statistic. Because you got to have a good reason to take that second X variable out. It's got implications for the rest of your project report, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You have to go all the way back to the hypothesis statement in the front, change it, take that variable out, take any forecast associated with that variable out of the report. Okay? So once you take it out, it's got ramifications throughout the entire report. I don't want to see it in there. Yes, sir.
Okay, so the Durbin-Watson statistic, does it have to be between the two numbers, the
Yeah.
lower number?
4 minus the lower and above the lower. The lower or above, okay?
4 minus it?
That's the upper limit. DW statistic. In business, simplify your line, okay? Look for the lower limit. Okay? So you have negative serial correlation.
Does Penny Dog sound like a monster on the street? I don't know. I'm keeping it safe. So does it sound stupid if I say I've not spoken to them?
If DW is greater than 4 minus the lower limit. Okay? You have positive serial correlation.
To whom it concerns.
If the DW is less than the lower limit. Okay? This is the sweet spot. In between those. Everybody got that? 4 minus the lower limit? Greater than that? You probably got seasonality left in the day. If it's less than the lower limit, you have cycle remaining. The data, by the data, I mean the residuals. This takes the place of the chi-square test. Remember? Remember the every Q values? Regression through the Durbin-Watson statistic refines it because it tells you what you're leaving behind. Seasonality, recycle. Yeah? Yeah, pick what variables you want. So you're always trying to keep it within those bounds because when you're in the sweet spot, it's time to break out the champagne, beer, whatever kind of person you are, and celebrate. Because you can be 95% confident in the model.
So the bottom one is a sweet spot.
Positive. Positive zero correlation when it's less than the lower limit.
That word makes me
It can be equal to the lower limit, but if it's less than it, it's not good. So the reliability test for this model is the t-values and p-values, of course, right? Right, they should be, this should be below 0.05 for every variable except for the constant term, and these should be above 1.960 for a large sample size, and the VIFs should be less than 5 for reliability. And this is another reliability check. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 reliability checks. T and P will always do the same thing. VIF and Durbin Watson. Yes, sir.
I'm still confused. So you want your Durbin Watson statistic to be lower than the
No. Lower than what?
Then you said the lower limit,
Yeah, the lower table
What-
limit.
which is the one on the left, right? It's on that table you have pulled up on your PowerPoint. You want your statistic to be lower than that number.
Let's look at it. Exactly.
Yes.
No, you don't want it to be lower than that number.
Yeah.
What am I saying?
You had told
No,
me
that's
earlier
serial.
you wanted it to
That's
be
serial
greater.
correlation. You don't want it to be lower than the lower limit,
Uh-huh.
because if it is, you've got positive serial correlation.
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
too much of the wave effect. Okay, left in the residual.
This.
No, you don't want that. You got positive
You
serial
just said that's the
correlation.
sweet spot.
You don't want to be positive serial correlation, you don't want to be negative serial correlation. You lose confidence.
You wanna
Sweet
be-
spots between them, you can be confident.
Okay, I get what you're saying now.
Okay? Is that too confusing?
Nice.
All of it is.
Remember I said the thing that you had to worry about in here is whether one number is bigger than another? That's critical in this class. Compare numbers. That's exactly the case. So you want to be in the sweet spot. All right, we're not. So if I wanted to use this, which I am going to use it to forecast with, what do I have to do? Well, I could go and play with the model some more and try to put some more dummy variables in. I've got some opportunities for that, but I'm not going to do it in this class. I've got some opportunities to model this downshift and this downshift. You see these? I can model those downshifts, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, all the way till you hit here. 1's here. 1's for the rest of the time. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1's till you hit here. And then leave them once. That's a persistent downshift. Okay? So you can put 2 more variables, dummy variables at least in this. And what it'll do, when you put those dummy variables in, it'll have a tendency to what? Explain more of the cycle, right? And when it explains more of the cycle, what happens to the Durbin-Watson statistic? It starts going up. So it might, if I put those 2 variables in, it might pull it into the sweet spot. Okay? Forgive me, we don't have enough time to do that. So I'm going to use this model to forecast. Okay?
Awesome.
But I don't want you guys to settle. Okay? Do the best job you can. Don't settle.
Can you
Don't
name
settle
two
like I
dummy-
do.
Can you name 2 dummy variables the same thing? Like you had two, what happens when the economy collapses? I forget the word. I can't think of the word.
Recession?
Well, then you could
Yeah,
change.
two.
You could change the one of the variables. In this case, I'd change the household net
But
worth.
can you name it the
That's the one
same
I
thing
got
when you
left. Huh?
have 2, what was the word in the?
Recession.
Yeah, you have
Recession?
2 recessions?
Yeah.
Okay, but you can name it the same thing, it won't matter at the end of the day?
No,
Okay.
no. You can name it anything you want to. You just need to tell what you're doing when you're creating those dummy variables. Tell the reader what you created.
Yeah, they're different.
So the only link I have with the economy in this model is through household net worth. Okay? But if you could say if there was a tax increase, what would happen to household net worth?
It will go down.
Right on. If there's a trade war, what happens to household net worth? Goes down. Typically, it's the case. Prices will start rising and household net worth will fall. Okay? Reduction in return on investment. Go down. Exactly. So most people don't look at the market dynamics associated with investment. If you've got something that's earning 4% now, and the interest rate goes to 6%, what happens to the value of the 4% investment? Huh?
They're gonna be worth less than you're just doing.
Beautiful. It's exactly the case. So rising interest rate when people have locked investment in means the value of their holdings will fall. So remember I told you one of the biggest rules of investment? Don't invest money that you need, that you'll need. Because guess what, when you'll need it is when what? When the economy starts to collapse and interest rates are driven down, or the prices of investments are driven down, and you're selling at a low price. Okay? Believe me, I've been on this earth, let me see, I think 73 years, can you believe that? That's horrible. And I've seen people hurt with that very, very phenomenon.
Like 50.
Okay, I don't want you to be hurt at all. So if you're going to invest, don't touch it. You do call me first, all right? So what I need is I need a forecast for seasonality, which I've got, right? But I need a forecast for this merger that took place. You notice that they're all ones, right? And we're not going to get rid of the merger during the forecast period, are we? We're not going to divest ourselves of that airline, so what I'm going to do is put a merger forecast here. And it's pretty easy to forecast it, isn't it? 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay? Everybody got that? So, let's go run the model one more time. Regression, fit regression model. This time I'm going to save the residuals, store residuals. You got that? Say okay, because you're going to need those to calculate and then put the residuals over here nicely. And now since we've got a good model run, we can go to predict. Stat, regression, not fit, but predict. We're going to predict the fits. Sounds like I'm going nuts here, doesn't it? AA revenue is correct. That's what we're trying to forecast. You don't want to enter individual values, do you? I'm not typing junk in. That's why we got Minitab Brothers, right? So you pull this down, it says enter columns of values, and when you select that, it lights up the columns that you've got in the worksheet. So it wants a forecast for household net worth, doesn't it? That's one of the variables. And I happen to have one right here. See that? It wants a forecast for seasonality. I got a seasonal forecast, right? And it wants a merger forecast. Okay? And results, or storage, not results, but storage. And this is where we're going to tell it to put down on the worksheet. Predicted fits are the forecast values. Those are predicted fitted values for the future. Don't worry about standard error. I don't want the confidence prediction limits. I want the confidence limits, 95% confidence limits, okay? Select okay. Okay. This is what we get. Let me move it over. We get P-fits. This is a forecast. We got the lower limit and the upper limit. And we have residuals, of course, we got from the previous run. Let's take these P-fits and see how they look. Control copy. Oh, come on. Control copy. The runtime exception has been raised. Please report this. What does that mean?
So not be safe.
Copy cells. I don't know what that means. They're going to call the cops on me? Open a column up right beside, we're gonna call this a regression forecast. Okay? Put the data, forecast observations down just below the actual AA revenue. And let's get a plot. Multiple columns, AA revenue, and regression forecast. And this is it. And we can connect the last observation in blue with the first observation of the forecast, and that's what the model tells us. Now, if we went in and reduced household net worth, reduced it, it would cause this forecast to fall. That's a recession. So you've got something you can play with. If you want to show a recession, feel free. Just have to show it in the forecast for household net worth.
So what did you just do?
I ran a regression model, created predicts these things, and plotted them on the end of the actual American Airlines data.
So is that good, the red? Is that good or bad?
This, I think it looks reasonable, yes.
Is that it? Is that the regression model? Is that,
That's the result from the regression model.
so that's the assignment?
Yeah, you can call the Marine Corps and get a marching band to play for you if you want to,
Yes.
but that's it.
Hoorah.
Hoorah.
And so we just have to pretty much write what you were talking about this whole time.
Yeah, yeah. But don't you guys appreciate what you've got here? You've used the seasonality that's typical for the company. You've got it timed